Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. A very good evening to you wherever you're having the opportunity to catch us. I know it's been a difficult week for most, and if not all Nigerians everywhere. Certainly we have lots to worry about, but for this particular hour, we're going to display some of those fears with some sports news and sports discussions around what is going on in the world of football and, in fact, anything we can get our hands on. There is a question that needs to be asked, and some have asked it, but we haven't touched it in this show. We haven't had the opportunity to ask ourselves and to put it out there to you, our audience. Is this Manchester City squad, the Manchester City squad that has Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Riyad Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, a striker as capable a deputy as he would be a starting number 9 for any other team in Julio Alvarez. And yet, he is still behind Erling Haaland. To tell you just how much quality is in the squad, I think the quality, the talent in the squad is undebatable. However, as much as they play very good quality football, are they the best team in the Premier League history? They are on course to win a treble, and the last team to actually win that treble, the first and only team to have ever won a treble in the Premier League history, is Manchester United back in 1999. They won the trio of the Premier League title, the FA Cup title, and the Champions League title. And for as long as Pep Guardiola has been managing, ever since he left Barcelona, the question of can he win the Champions League, can his legacy be complete if he doesn't win the Champions League outside of the team that had Lionel Messi in it? Can he do it with this Manchester City team? A lot of money has been spent to acquire and to assemble this juggernaut of a team. If you needed an Avengers team of football, this would be it. This team completely trounced the Real Madrid squad. The team that, no matter whether they're playing well, when it comes to Champions League football, they are indomitable. And yet, that's just what they did. They dominated them. A famous quote, and I don't know how many of you are Game of Thrones fans, but a man once said, no matter how impregnable a fortress is, give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate her. Well, Pep Guardiola has more than 10 good men. He has 2 first 11s of good men and a bit more. He has quality seeping out of every pore of this Manchester City squad. In fact, if you put this squad against any team in history, I'm not certain any team in history could beat them. Not the Galacticos of the first iteration that had Ronaldo de Lima, that had David Beckham, that had Roberto Carlos, that had the almighty Zinedine Zidane. I'm not sure that team, with the kind of quality football they played back then in that era, could beat this Manchester City team. However, we will never have an opportunity to pit those two teams against each other, unless, of course, you're playing one of those simulation games. The stats speak for themselves. So many goals scored this season. And I have on the line with me Monday Thomas to examine just how much quality this team has. Can they win the treble this season, becoming only the second team in the history of the Premier League to do so, which would most definitely annoy Manchester United fans? This is a team that used to be known as the noisy neighbors. Well, they have a lot to be noisy about now. Monday, good evening.
Well, thank you so much for having me once again, Tinubu. It's a pleasure to be talking sports with you right here on Plus Sports. And the argument, I mean, the topic, the conversation is wide open already. Many people have already jumped on it. And I think it's also great we talk about it. Manchester City, a team on everyone's lips. And I kind of like your intro. I mean, talking about the Avengers and, of course, putting them in that same conversation. Well, to cut the long story short, to stop beating around the bush, to just let everyone know my opinion, I think Manchester City are the greatest team in history. I know I'm going to ruffle a lot of shoulders. The Arsenal fans of the 2002, 2003, 23, 24, the Manchester United, the very first treble side in England, winning the Premier League in 1999, winning the FA Cup, and as well as winning the UEFA Champions League. But when we talk about Manchester City, they're yet to win a treble, and of course, they're on course to do that starting from tomorrow, when they will, of course, play against Manchester United at the FA Cup final. But what makes them the greatest, in my opinion? Well, when you compare them to the Arsenal side, the prime time Arsene Wenger, you saw a little bit of creativity and a more pragmatic football where Arsenal were always playing a 4-4-2 formation with Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp or Sylvain Wiltord and Kanu. I mean, this was a pragmatic and direct side. They knew what they wanted. They had intent every time they went on the pitch of play. And then you go talk about the side of Sir Alex Ferguson. I can remember many times Sir Alex Ferguson had gone down by 2 goals. You get to see Manchester United. They had this fighting spirit. You get to see a team with everyone was disciplined. It looks like they were a military side. It looks like they were every time they play football, they're coming out from a cantonment. I mean, you see this side. They play with fever. They play with camaraderie, and you could see that on the pitch of play. Discipline, decision making, and practical football, and as well as direct. So that is what Alex Fergie brought to football. But when we talk about the 2023-2024 Manchester City side, I think Pep Guardiola has completely modernized English football. You get to see this side what they want from the first minute. They want to break your defense. They want to get in the goals, but they won't go directly. They will put it in a way that you enjoy the game as a neutral. You will see creativity. You see skills. You see great passing. This is what modern day football is all about. And you see them get the goals as well. No matter how strong you are, the defense, Pep Guardiola's attack will break it down anytime they want to. I can remember the game, the semi-final game, the second leg, especially at the Etihad Stadium against 14 times Real Madrid. No one expected Real Madrid and Los Blancos to be that immature, that amateur on the pitch of play. Well, they made them look like I don't even know which team is as poor as the Real Madrid were on that night. That is what Manchester City are doing this season, and I think they can win the treble for sure.
Well, it's worth mentioning that while you say they are the best team in history, I was talking about the Premier League, but you've made a bold statement there, my friend. The best team in history. You would be
in history of the Premier League, of course.
Okay, because there are many Barcelona fans, certainly of the 2008-2009 season, the period in which Pep Guardiola established himself, put his name on the lips of every single football lover in the world. He managed a lot of great talent in that squad. How do you compare this Manchester City team with that team that had Lionel Messi? Because usually when teams face off with each other, there's this thing we tend to do. We create a paper. If we were going to build a team, a single first 11, based on the starting 11 of these two teams, what players would make it into the starting 11 in each position? And back then, we used to see a lot of times where the Barcelona versus Real Madrid squad, it was mostly dominated by Barcelona players. Of course, Ronaldo made it into the squad. Of course, Sergio Ramos made it into the squad. But in this particular moment, we're looking at the Barcelona team of 2008, or you know what, let's say 2009, 2010, this team that did not have Eto in it, the team that did not have Ibrahimovic in it, the team that crystallized everything we loved about tiki-taka football under Pep Guardiola for Barcelona, putting that team, the mostly Catalonia-born side, against this Manchester City team. Where does your money go?
I'm gonna put my money in the Barcelona side. You're just
Okay.
taking my mind way back. I mean, that was the finest footballers team. Thank God we're talking about the Premier League because I keep doubting some qualities in the Premier League. Many people think the Premier League is the best league in the world. No, it's not. Manchester United, Manchester City are dominating it because people don't play that kind of football. They're dominating it because they have Pep Guardiola who thinks outside the box. And when you talk about the similarities between the City side of this season and the Barcelona side, the Tiki Taka Barcelona, of course, one very obvious similarity is that they have Pep Guardiola, and this is the coordinator. This is the gaffer. This is the tactician. So they're almost alike. They're almost alike. Just that they don't have Lionel Messi in his front, and that completely changes the facet of the game in comparison to these two sides. I mean, Xavi Hernandez. Are we going to start comparing Xavi Hernandez to maybe Rodrigue? You wouldn't find that. Xavi Hernandez was a different style of player in his days. You can't compare Ilkay Gundogan to Iniesta, although they have some very close similarities, but I'm going to pick Iniesta anytime, any day. Talking about Sergio Busquets, maybe we can compare him to the likes of Rodri, but I think the Barcelona side are clearly better than this Manchester City side, where you compare the quality in this team. There are some positions I think Manchester City have more than Barcelona of that time, but when it comes to the whole play, I will pick the Barcelona side of 208, 209, maybe 2015 when the last won the Champions League in Berlin.
Well, obviously, any team that has Lionel Messi in his prime puts that team several degrees above the next team. But regarding your point about Pep Guardiola is dominating the Premier League isn't the best league in the world. Well, what league it is? This Manchester City team could get banned from the Premier League today and walk into any league in the world and dominate, including over Real Madrid and Barcelona in the Spanish league, including over Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, including over PSG in Ligue 1. None of these teams seem capable of playing to the high standards that Pep Guardiola has set for this squad.
Well, that's your opinion, and there's nothing wrong if you think that Manchester City can go to the Spanish La Liga and dominate. Of course, they will contend for the title, but they cannot ultimately dominate. You cannot dominate Barcelona for 3 seasons. You can't dominate Atletico Madrid for 3 seasons. I mean, this is a more tactical and
But why
technical
not?
league.
But why not? Barcelona dominated the league against Real Madrid for more than 3 seasons until Mourinho came and broke up the monopoly. Real Madrid for a long time did the same against Barcelona before the Frank Rijkaard era. And when you look at the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich are the only team of real quality
Now,
that
now,
you.
no. Of course, your point is clear if you're comparing them with
Okay,
the German
but I
Bundesliga. But in the
preface
Spanish
this
league,
with
I
a
don't think that's
question.
going to happen.
But I preface this with the question: what league is better than the Premier League?
Spanish league. The
Okay,
Spanish league is better than the Premier League.
we'll agree to disagree.
Spanish league will be,
Uh,
apart from Manchester City going to maybe Spain to dominate, which other team can go from England to Real Madrid and dominate?
well,
Can we
not
talk about it?
well regarding dominating. There's a reason why we're talking about Manchester City being the best team in the world. We're talking about a team that could dominate anywhere. Everybody else would only be competing for second place. This Manchester City, let me just read some stats to you. This Manchester City, under Pep Guardiola, in the last 6 seasons, where they've won 5 Premier League titles. In the first season that they won the Premier League title under Pep Guardiola, out of 38 games, they picked up 100 points. They scored 106 goals and only conceded 27. The next team to come close was Manchester United, who picked up 81 points, 68 goals for them, and conceded 28 goals. The next season that they won it, 98 points, 2 points deficit, but still quite impressive. And it took Liverpool all the way to the very end of the season to come close. They finished with 97 points. Man City were on 95 goals and conceded 23. Liverpool could only score 89 goals, conceded 22. The third season that Manchester City won, 86 goals, 86 points taken, 83 goals scored, 32 goals conceded. Next team in second place, Manchester United, 73 goals scored, 44 goals conceded. And this season, last season, they had 93 points, 99 goals scored, 26 goals conceded. And let's just move on to this season, 94 goals scored, 33 goals conceded, 89 goals scored. This is a team that would be in the same bracket as Real Madrid and Barcelona as being the most dominant teams in their league, given how for years we've said, La Liga is a duopoly. Nobody else comes close. Every few years, Atletico Madrid may come in and break up the duopoly, and then they're out of the discussion for another 3 seasons. In Bundesliga, it has been about 10 years now since Dortmund last won the league. In Ligue 1, we've only recently just seen Lille break up PSG's momentum. And my point is, obviously, if there were a conversation about the Super League today, if there was a conversation about the Super League, the European Super League returning today and maybe finally getting approval, I foresee Manchester City as a standout team, regardless of the league they come from. They would be ahead of everybody. Most likely, they would win 2 leagues out of the first 3 seasons. Probably 3 out of the first 5 seasons. Probably 7 out of the first 10 seasons. Can you hear me?
Okay, so we're still talking Manchester City. Now, I think we moved away from Manchester City dominating England, and we talked about Manchester City, how they'll fare in the Spanish league, where I think it is better than the English league. Now, it's okay. I know for sure that Manchester City will dominate Spanish football for quite some time. But what happens to all the leagues? Because when we are talking about these 2 leagues, we're not just talking about City. We're talking we are talking Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton, Tottenham Hotspur. I'm saying apart from Manchester City dominating Spanish football, which is a clear fact, which other English team can dominate Spanish league? I can mention many teams from the Spanish league that can dominate English football for at least 2 seasons. Real Madrid will do so. Barcelona will do so. Atletico Madrid will contend for the title every time. Every
other
season.
than the Real Madrid side, so taking out Manchester City, other than Real Madrid and Barcelona, every other team in the Spanish league would struggle against the top 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League. Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad, Valencia, if we can still say Valencia is a top team, Sevilla, certainly. These teams would struggle against, in an ideal season, against Chelsea, certainly against Liverpool, certainly against Manchester United, even the Manchester United right now under Eric Ten Hag, who is seemingly getting them back on track. They might, and if we say the quality of this season's Arsenal is an indication of future progress and competitiveness, then most teams in the top half of the Spanish league would struggle against most teams in the top six of the Premier League.
Yeah, of
Aside
course.
Real Madrid and Barcelona, of course.
Clear fact. Clear fact. I'll completely agree with you right there. But Manchester City, once again, I think they've done great in this season, and what they've been doing, returning to the finals. The last time they did so was in 2021, where they lost to Chelsea, and it's good to see them doing greatly as well in the Premier League. And they're just about to break the feet of the great star Alex of Ferguson. I think they'll also do well in Spanish league, but I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to stick to what I believe. I think the Spanish league is it's just the class in the Spanish league is way better than that in England. I mean, the style of football. Well, it just depends on my
I
definition
believe,
of
I
football, how
actually
I
believe,
enjoy football.
I believe the Premier League is the destination for a wide variety of styles. The Spanish league is
Again,
obviously,
because that's where the money is. That's where
yes,
they're splashing the
and
cash. The
that in
pounds is
itself, when you bring more talent from more variety of cultures in not just in the on the pitch, but also in the coaching staff, and you have all these styles coming together and blending and merging, you will end up with a much more original style, much more all-encompassing style than the ones you would find anywhere else. The German league is from top to bottom predictably one style. Every manager that comes
okay.
into the German league is understood to expect to play a certain way. To the degree that even when Pep Guardiola managed Bayern Munich, a lot of complaints came from Bayern Munich fans who felt he had changed significantly, even though they were still playing positional football, playing possession football. The way they went about it was very different from the way German football was expected to go, and now he's in the Premier League. The Premier League once upon a time had a motto. If this was back in the day where it was kick the ball forward, let the big man retain it with his chest, and then the style of West Ham, the style of
Some teams still play
City.
that kind of football.
We don't play.
Some teams still play.
But in general, they don't play that style of football anymore. And when you think about it, the likes of Burnley could pull a surprise game on you. We've seen the likes of Burnley, we've seen the likes of Wolves, we've seen the likes of Brighton in recent years, Swansea, Leeds. All of these teams have come into the Premier League, whether they've gone out immediately or gone out after a couple seasons. We've seen them come into the Premier League and play some really quality football that has completely shifted away from the old style of English football. In the English football, the 4-4-2 was the preferred formation. No one is using that anymore. And in fact, for a time, that formation made its way back into Spain. And it has been absent from Spain longer than it has been from the Premier League. Zinedine Zidane found success with that formation in pairing Cristiano Ronaldo and Benzema up front together. And I'm saying to you now, the Premier League is the most influential league in the world. It influences everywhere else. And in fact, with Pep Guardiola in the Premier League right now, with Barcelona's struggles, with the fact that the most money isn't available even at Real Madrid anymore for any player who's looking for a huge paycheck. The fact is, aside from the illustrious nature of the Real Madrid brand, the Barcelona brand, everybody else wants to come to the Premier League. Not just because of the money, mind you, but the money is a big factor. And the football in the Premier League
I can tell you what other factor is attracting these players. The media. They know that when you play in the English Premier League, everyone is going to watch you.
Yeah.
Like everyone in the world is going to be looking out
But
for you to
that
see you play. I mean,
but doesn't
the
that
media
correlate
service,
with the acceptance that the quality in the Premier League is very high?
it does not for me. It does not for me because I need to enjoy the kind of the football I'm watching. I can't watch Manchester City take on Leeds United and 90 minutes is Manchester City on the ball. I don't enjoy that kind of football.
But
You
that's the
see
wrong
Spanish
team
La
to
Liga.
pick. But that's the wrong team to pick against Manchester City because Manchester City wouldn't even dominate 100% against Leeds United, even the Leeds United that have gotten relegated. But I take your point. However, if you looked at the Spanish football, aside from Atletico Madrid, and even they would throw their backs to the wall, park a bus, park a plane, park a train and a freighter, and a ship in front of their defense.
They don't park any longer. Atletico Madrid don't. I mean, things have changed. When you mention
Well,
Atletico Madrid, do not forget
there's
Sevilla.
Atletico
Sevilla
Madrid.
has big side.
There's
I'm
Atletico
not even going to
Madrid.
mention Valencia because
This
Valencia has gone
Atletico
down the
Madrid
pecking
have not
order.
gone up against this Manchester City side. I do not believe they would have any choice but to go back to defense and try to prevent Man City scoring a goal and hope that they could grab a goal themselves. But to your point regarding Barcelona and Real Madrid, we've seen what Manchester City did against Real Madrid this season. There's very few talents on the market right now that Real Madrid can go into the market with and say, you know what, we want to build another El Galactico squad. Other than Erling Haaland, who is at Man City and would be able to get the most amount of wages possible that even Real Madrid couldn't compete with, and shall we say Kylian Mbappe, who has been a long time project and target for Real Madrid, who's left in the market for this Real Madrid squad to say, you know what, we want to build an El Galactico side all over again. I don't see it. I don't see another El Galactico side. And given how terribly they played against Manchester City, do you see Barcelona doing any better, faring any better against this Manchester City, even though Xavi, a disciple of the Johan Cruyff school of thought on football, a player who played under Pep Guardiola and may have picked up a few things, who in himself is finding his own style to express the tiki-taka version of football that he played once upon a time at Barcelona, and a squad that is full of young talent, but raw talent compared to this squad of carefully assembled giants by Pep Guardiola, who have been playing this style of football for such a long time now that they are at the peak of their powers. Real Madrid couldn't beat them. I don't see this Barcelona side beating them. PSG aren't organized enough, and we saw what happened in the tie between the Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich and Manchester City. Who's left? It's not about pitting the leagues against each other. I'm just asking the question because for the last 5 years, even when Man City haven't gotten to the finals, everyone said this is the team that is favorites to win the Champions League for the last 5 seasons, which is an acceptance that this is quality football all over the pitch from every single player in every single position, managed by the best player, the best manager perhaps in history. Who's left? Who can compete with this Manchester City? Given that this summer they will probably pick up Declan Rice or some other midfielder, they will probably beat Real Madrid or Barcelona to whatever first choice options they are pursuing. Who can stop this team?
Well, there are lots of teams who can stop them. This season was just maybe Manchester City's season. Yeah, we can see that because Manchester City have been playing well for the past 5 years, for the past 4 years under Pep Guardiola, but they've been struggling in the Champions League. It's just their season. And when your season comes, everything seems to be working for you. Who would have expected that Chelsea would have beaten Manchester City in Porto 2021 finals? Who would have expected that? It wasn't just their season. This is their season. It looks like everything is working against other teams. I can see how naive Bayern Munich looked on the night against City. Even Real Madrid. It's just their season for them to flourish. They should enjoy themselves. But I don't think that they are outrightly the greatest team in the world right now. Like you compare them to the Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, way better than Manchester City's Barcelona by far because of the quality, because of the talent in that particular squad. Next season, let's see if this Manchester City side will continue in this venom, in this quality. Let's just watch and see. And if that happens, if the Super League happens, this is really going to just settle everything for us to know who is the greatest team in the world.
Well,
Just to them, Manchester City, I'm not going to take away their guns. I'm not going to steal their glory. They've done greatly. They should be competing with the Hall of Famers.
Erling Haaland has come into the squad and completely changed the nature of how Manchester City play. They always wanted to be perfect in their control of the ball. But this is a player that sometimes has errant passes, sometimes his first touches aren't great, and he doesn't contribute to the build-up play as Sergio Aguero once did for this side. He is not the perfect Pep Guardiola striker. However, some have said he has actually made the squad better. The way they play is more direct. The options he provides them is more interesting and more dynamic. Might he be the factor that finally breaks the camel's back and unlocks that elusive Champions League door that Pep Guardiola has been trying to pry open for his entire time since he left Barcelona?
Let me tell you something. A final where you get to know the clear favorites and the clear underdog, that happens to be the toughest final. That happens to be a very difficult final for the favorites. Remember, City were favorites in 2021. What happened to them? And once again, City are favorites in 2023 against Inter Milan, who are the underdogs in this case. And we've seen how well they've kept clean sheets in this UEFA Champions League season. 8 clean sheets by Andre Nana, the most by any goalkeeper in the UEFA Champions League this season. We've seen how they were able to stop AC Milan from scoring in the semi-finals, both home and away. Although technically they were both homes, and Inter Milan they've struggled so far this season. Winning the Coppa Italia is just that motivation they need to go into the finals and do something great. I'm not doubting the fact that City can win this particular one, but for those of us who think that it's going to be a walk in the park for Manchester City, or they're the favorites, they've got Erling Haaland, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, who do the nearest jury have? Well, you're going to see some kind of football on the 10th of June. I am just waiting for that particular day. I want to be entertained, and I think City are really going to struggle on that night because Inter Milan have one game plan, and City pray the game plan don't work. City pray they don't score first. Because they are going to see a defensive masterclass.